How scary was it to spend $25,000 on that coaching program?
Like my formal education mind was like, this is the path and the way to go. But my self-education was like, this is a cost and a liability. So that's the difference between my mindset. I remember calling my dad. I said, hey, I'm thinking about joining this program. And my dad was like, well, what do they do? He's like, I'm like, they're flipping like 150 houses a year each. They're making millions of dollars. He's like, well, do you think they could help you? I was like, yeah, I do think they could help me. And he's like, well, what'd you make on your last flip? I was like, made $45,000. He goes, what do you want to do next year? I said, I want to do 12. And he's like, well, do you think they could help you do 12? I go, yeah, I think so. He's like, do you think they could help you do one more? I was like, well, if they can't help me do one more, like this is a joke. And he's like, well, wouldn't you pay $25,000 to make $45,000 more? And he's like, it sounds like some consultants. And we hire consultants all the time to help us with our business, to dial in our numbers, to come see the areas that we don't see. These guys are probably going to see some stuff that you don't see in yourself. And he said, it sounds like you believe in them, but it sounds like the problem is you might not believe in yourself. And when he said that, I was like, oh man, those are fighting words to me. So I was like, all right, that's it, I'm in.
Welcome back to the Art of Connecting podcast. This is episode number 2 being recorded in the same day. This is the first time I think I've actually done this before. So if my voice gets a little hoarse by the end, that's what has happened. But I am honored today to be here with Bill Allen. I'm super excited for this episode. I'm kind of like cheesing right now because I had the pleasure of meeting Bill in Knoxville, Tennessee. He was speaking at the Knoxville's Best Real Estate Meetup, which actually served as the motivation and the inspiration behind the meetup that I ended up founding and starting in Chattanooga. And I met Bill, and I'd followed him on Instagram for a little bit because I'm working on getting my private pilot's license next year, and I'm just super into aviation, and he posts all about aviation on his Instagram. And so as soon as I walked in the door, he was walking out of the bathroom. I was like, oh, hey, Bill, I follow you on Instagram. And I was like, I love aviation and everything. He's like, well, if you want to just fly back to Nashville with me tonight, you can. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I figured out how to do that and ended up getting to have some time with Bill in the cockpit, which was amazing. So long story short, Bill, thank you so much for being here. And I'm super excited for the episode today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm ready. I'm excited for this too. I love doing these, and I love flying people around in the plane too. So it's all I was going to be flying by myself back that night. What were there, like 5 of us, I think? So other people jumped
We
in the
filled the
back.
plane. I mean, every seat was full.
Yeah.
7 people.
Yeah, it was fun.
That was sick, man. But yeah, so I kind of prefaced Bill on this when we first got on here. I want to think about how Bill is a builder. So Bill builds his machines, which are his businesses, and he is the pilot of those businesses. In my eyes, at least, that's kind of how my third person perspective sees Bill Allen. Many of you may know Bill from the real estate podcast that he's been on. He's been on pretty much every big real estate podcast that there is, talking about his real estate business. But I got to know him quite a bit deeper than just the real estate side of things while we were in the air. And I want to bring out some of those things that maybe aren't talked about quite as much in other podcasts. So getting started, I really wanted to ask and talk about what are some of the connections that in the very beginning of building your business it took. And I guess before I do that, I should probably have you introduce yourself to the audience as well.
I retired from the Navy last year. I did 15 years of active duty flying helicopters and airplanes. I did 5 years in the reserves, retired in June of 2023. And then along the way, I built a real estate business. I was flipping one house a year. I got really excited, like watching HGTV shows, like a lot of people. Demoed my bathroom in the house that I was living in. And I don't know, that was like 2011. I rebuilt it back up and then turned it into a rental when I left. I moved 18 times in 20 years. So moved around a lot, like bought a house, rented it out. And then I started flipping houses. I flipped one a year for a couple of years. And then I started building a business, like a real business on the side while I was still active duty. We did 67 houses the first year, 135 the next year, 187 the year after that, pretty much doing 200 houses a year. Then I took over a real estate coaching company called 7 Figure Flipping. So I bought that from my mentor in 2019, about 5 years ago now this month, and started like adjusting and scaling that up. And then most recently, I built a software company in the last year for live event registration platforms. So people have meetups just like you. We're about to roll out a really cool product for that. So it's like, badge printing, data tracking, list building tools, things like that. So we needed it for our company. So I buy like maybe 4 to 6 apartments a year as well. Probably have like 1,500 units all said and done total. I have a company up in Kentucky where we buy houses, fix them up, and sell them on owner financing. And then I do a little bit of money lending. I did a lot more previously, but kind of putting most of my money in our apartments right now. So that's kind of, and I also have a farm, probably do like maybe $500,000 on the farm this year, top line revenue. So right now there's somebody over there selling blueberries for me. So hopefully it's going well.
Heck yeah. And the plane too. You're
Yeah.
also
And the plane, we do some like reels and podcasts and YouTube on the plane. So everything there is at Bill Allen REI. So if you want to check out the airplane YouTube stuff that we do, it's over there and on Instagram and TikTok. So
perfect. So I want to go way back to Bill Allen, you're in the military and you are working on getting into this real estate thing. This whole podcast, the whole premise is talking about the connections that it takes to be successful. Like, because you see someone who's successful and every time there's a huge team and a huge web of people that are behind that face that you see. So kind of thinking back to when you were first getting into real estate and first getting started, what were some of those pivotal connections that you made that got you started?
yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. So on the real estate side, there was a realtor in Maryland. So I was living in England. I was going to test pilot school to become a test pilot, and I was going to move back to Maryland in Patuxent River, Southern Maryland, where NAS Patuxent River is. We have a test pilot squadrons are there, and there was a realtor who I was working with to like find a rental for us. I was moving back, but I was like planning to get engaged to my girlfriend at the time, and then I was looking for a house, and so she was helping me find a rental. I actually moved to San Diego for 4 months. So while we were in San Diego, got engaged, and then met this realtor online, and she was helping me with that. Then when I moved there, she also helped me find a house to buy. So I bought my second rental house there in Maryland, fixed it up, rented it out, and then she helped me find a third house to buy that I was going to turn into a rental, but she convinced me to flip it because she wanted to make a second commission. But had she not done that, I don't know where I'd be right now. Like her name was Wanda Florence. She was I don't think she had like a ton of clients, but I was definitely having her help me. And I wanted to become like a bigger investor. I wanted to do more. And I had this like vision of owning a bunch of rental properties. And so she was a huge catalyst in my, in that journey, is helping me kind of, flip that first house. I made $43,000. It was like half my salary as a pilot. It was massive for me.
That's a
And
sick
then,
flip.
what's that?
That's
Yeah.
a sick flip. That's
Yeah,
a
it was
good
pretty
profit.
good. It was like, took me 6 months. I did a lot of the work myself. When I look back, I was making $12.94 an hour when I did the math of how much time I spent there. But $43,000, that changed my life, just that perspective. I didn't even think about it by, dollar per hour. And then there was a guy there in Maryland at my test pilot squadron. His name was Casey. He was an engineer. So these guys like fly with us or do projects with us. They write the majority of the report. We tell them, what we felt, what we did, but they do a lot of the work on the back end. Like we get to fly and they get to write the reports. And I went to a meetup, like just a meetup, real estate meetup, my first ever real estate meetup. It was, free right there in Southern Maryland. This guy named Steve was running it, and went to this meetup. And this engineer that I had been working with on this project in the helicopter, he was there. So I like got in there, met all these people. There's probably like 10 or 12 people there. It wasn't big. And he comes walking out of the bathroom. And I was like, Casey, what are you doing here? His name's Casey Gaines. I'm like, Casey, what are you doing here? He's like, I'm here for the meetup. What are you doing here? I was like, well, I'm here for the real estate meetup too. And I thought I had 2 rental houses at the time. I don't even think I'd bought my first flip there yet. And I thought I was like big cheese. Like I thought I was doing a lot. And I was like, so what do you do in real estate? I had no idea. Like we work together. Like literally we're working on a project. I see him almost every day. I never heard anything about real estate. And he's like, oh, we're flipping like 5 houses right now in, Lexington Park and these areas of Southern Maryland. And I was like, you're what, 5 houses? You're flipping 5 houses like right now? He's like, yeah. Me and my wife. My wife's the realtor, and I run the projects. I was like, what? 5 houses at one time? And it was just like a huge shift for me of like, this guy I'd never talked about. I had no idea. He's an engineer. Like, I hate to say it like this, but like the pilots think they're like kind of like hot stuff, right? And the engineers are like, can you do my homework for me? And so now I'm like, oh man, the tables have really turned here. Like this dude's probably making way more money than me. And he's got I had a lot to learn. So I started asking him some questions, like getting to know him a little bit better. And it was just, that is a connection that I will remember. Like those two things, they were big catalysts in my growth. And then the third one is absolutely 100% a podcast that I listened to when I was just getting going. And it was a guy named Justin Williams. The podcast was called House Flipping HQ. I actually own the company. I own the podcast right now. And it's called Seven Figure Flipping Now. But if you go, we archived a lot of those episodes, but I would listen to him on the podcast, and I had never bought anything in my life, and I bought a $25,000 coaching program from him. And that's the moment where my business went from 1 deal a year to 67 deals. Inside that mastermind and that coaching program, I met some of the biggest mentors of my life, and they always will be. And I also met a guy who partnered on my first 6 projects. So he brought the money, lived in San Diego, and I brought the deals. And the first call that I ever had with my coach in that mastermind, he linked me up with this guy. He said, I think you guys would be a good fit together. And he proceeded to put like $2 million into my projects over the next 9 months. And It was really big for my business. Without that guy, Joseph, I won't give his last name because everybody will be reaching out for all his money. But that guy, Joseph, in California, it was a huge connection. And if Andy McFarlane hadn't done that for me, I don't know if I would have made it, in the beginning of kind of scaling and starting my business. So that gave me a lot of, because we made hundreds of thousands of dollars together in the first year, me and him.
How scary was it to spend $25,000 on that coaching program?
Well, it felt really like, so here's the mindset that I had. I had never spent any money on paid education, never bought a book. I had a library card. I didn't ever go to an event. I didn't ever pay for anything. I was on BiggerPockets like nonstop at the time, and everybody's like anti-coaching. You don't have to spend money, get it for free. Like that was the kind of like rhetoric that was getting pushed into my brain at the time and what people were saying. And so I was like, all right, like this is probably a scam, because that was my default in my head. I compared it to a car. Like I was driving an Acura at that point, an Acura ILX. I don't know, it's an old Acura ILX, probably like 20 grand, 25 grand I paid for it. I was like, I could buy another Acura, or I could buy this coaching program. So I was looking at it like a total liability. And I didn't look at it as investment myself. You guys in the US government paid $1.6 million for me to go to test pilot school in England. I have a bachelor's degree in engineering from Georgia Tech. I have a master's degree in aeronautical engineering from the Air Force Institute of Technology. There's been about $2 million pumped into my formal education. I had never used any of it, really. They taught me how to be a test pilot for $1.6 million. I worked for 2 years as a test pilot, and then I went back to training students how to fly airplanes. So like my formal education mind was like, this is the path and the way to go. But my self-education was like, this is a cost and a liability. So that's the difference between my mindset. And I remember calling my dad, who had run an engineering business for a while, and they did pretty well. After like 20 years, they started making like, $1 million a year as a company. And I called him up and I said, hey, I'm thinking about joining this program. And my dad was like, well, what do they do? I'm like, they're flipping like 150 houses a year each. They're making millions of dollars. He's like, well, do you think they could help you? I was like, yeah, I do think they could help me. And he's like, well, what'd you make on your last flip? I was like, made $45,000. He goes, what do you want to do next year? I said, I want to do 12. And he's like, well, do you think they could help you do 12? I go, yeah, I think so. He's like, do you think they could help you do one more? I was like, well, if they can't help me do one more, like this is a joke. And he's like, well, wouldn't you pay $25,000 to make 45,000 more? And he's like, it sounds like some consultants. And we hire consultants all the time to help us with our business, to dial in our numbers, to come see the areas that we don't see. These guys are probably going to see some stuff that you don't see in yourself. And he said, it sounds like you believe in them, but it sounds like the problem is you might not believe in yourself. And when he said that, I was like, oh man, those are fighting words to me. So I was like, all right, that's it. I'm in. And so I didn't spend $25,000. I invested $25,000 into myself. Best investment I ever made in my entire life. And I think the challenge for me is I never paid to go to college. Like the government paid for me. I had a full scholarship, full ride for all of those education programs. So $2 million, I never had to write a check for a single dollar of it. So because of that, I don't think I really valued the paying for education. And so now I've paid a lot of money. I probably paid like almost $1 million for my self-education between different groups, trainings, courses, travel, trips, all that stuff in the last 8 years. And I've made tens of millions of dollars from that. and the return on my 2 million hasn't been that high in the formal education world. So that's kind of my talk on that. It was a little scary, but I just needed that little push over the edge from my dad, and I'm glad he was there as a mentor, because I mean, my life would be totally different if I didn't make that decision to jump.
And I feel like once you do the first investment, you're hooked. Like, I love how you framed it, because you really aren't spending the money, right? You're investing it because you're investing it in the best, the most valuable thing you have, which is in between your temples,
Yeah.
um,
Well,
and
let
also
me talk to that a little bit real quick, because I see it. Like, I run a mastermind, a coaching program. I see people come to my events and just like, oh, they're buying everything out there. Okay, so I think there's a challenge on both sides. Like, the pendulum needs to swing a little bit closer in the middle. So the extremes on either end are really having trouble in everywhere, in politics and in everything, like everything. The extremes are the problem. And so the people who won't spend any money on their self-education, I think, are a problem. And the people who spend way too much on their self-education and don't actually implement anything that they learn is also a problem. So the advice that I would give to people out there is, you can really only like focus on like one thing. If there's like one thing that you need or want or have to execute on right now, like, who's the person that already knows that thing? If it's a book that they wrote, if it's an event that they have, if it's a program, a course, a mastermind, something like that, buy it, consume it, and go all in on it. The problem I see right now is people are listening to too many people. Like, there's too much noise in the marketplace right now. Like, everybody's like confused about what to do because they have too many radios on. There's like 15 radios on in everybody's house, and they're trying to listen to like 10% of this and 5% of this and 20% of this. It's like, just pick one and go all in. And so for me, like, I get people approach me all the time. You should join my mastermind. You should be in this program. Like, what is the thing that I need the most right now? What can I benefit from the most? And I'm going to go all in on that and spend all my time on it. And then it's going to create a new problem. So once I solve that problem, it's going to create a new problem for me. And then I'm going to have to go find who already knows that thing and is willing to teach me if I pay them or spend time with them or mentor with them or whatever, work for them. Like, they're going to teach me the next thing that I need to know. So I'm constantly going to be like graduating or going deeper in the program I'm already in that has other areas. So I think one of the big problems is once you get a little taste of self-education, you become a little bit addicted to it and you start buying a lot of stuff. And I see that being a problem as well. So like, I've seen both of these sides. I've seen people that have come in our program that are in like 15 other programs. And I'm like, okay, you're just like a program junkie and you're not moving the needle. You're not getting progress. You're not actually making, and you're listening to too many people. You got to turn off all the radio stations and just listen to one. So that's my biggest advice there is just kind of, I think both are a problem. The challenge is, okay, what do I need right now in the short term? And then there's a book, there's an event, there's a course, there's a program, there's a mastermind for that. And then get what you need. And then if you can go deeper, then go deeper. Like, I've been in a program right now. This is going like end of my third year. Actually, this is year 5. I was in a lower level program with them for 2 years, and I'm still getting a ton from it. But I love the community. I love the people. I love the culture. I love all that stuff. Can't ever see myself leaving. However, if it creates a new problem that's big enough, I might have to find another place to solve it if they can't.
So what is that one thing for you right now?
So right now, like, I think it's meeting the right people in like my coaching business. So like, we know the direction we need to go. I just made a couple of changes in the company. I just hired a CEO. Have moved myself out of the day-to-day so that I could go build the software company. So I would say for me, it's right now, like immediately where my feet are right now, it's the connections that I need to grow my software business. So I just joined a program that has a bunch of other real estate coaches and people in there for connections, not only for my 7-figure flipping company to do JVs together, partnerships, things like that, collaborations, see what other people are doing and meet some new people in the industry, as well as the fact that they do a lot of live events. So my live event software registration company, I want to get it into that program. I want other people to use it. It's a great avenue and outlet for us to have more clients in my software business. And I'm not there just to make money. I'm there to provide as much value in the live event business space as I can, so that people see us as the expert that are like, oh, we have to use this software. So my software business, I would say, is really like the focus of where I would kind of go to or pay for an event to kind of meet the right people to do that.
And you mentioned that the number one priority is the connections to grow your software company. So what connections do you need right now?
Yeah, so those are probably like maybe live event planners, in any industry. It's not just for real estate. It's people who run live events, people who know other folks who run live events, as well as we're launching like a subscription program at $97 a month, as cheap as $97 a month, for people who do meetups that want to build their list. So name, email, phone number. So really any of those people, just like knowing and understanding what we do as a software company and how we can help them make more money with their live event business, whether it's a RIA meetup, it could even be an HOA meetup that like they're using piece of paper and pencil when they can use an iPad to check in, things like that, just in a very cheap option, all the way up to somebody who's doing, 10,000 people at their event and selling high ticket from stage, where we can help them make millions more dollars. And so that it's like anywhere in between. People are running live events as small as a meetup with 10, 20, 50 people, all the way up to somebody who's doing an event like Tony Robbins. Any of those could be potential clients for us.
Do you currently have like a sales team in that business for people to get connected if they do run a live event?
Yeah, we do. So yeah, we have a team. Right now, it's a small team of people that jump on the call, and I might even be on the call, or my business partner might be on the call right now. But the site is intheroom.live. So like in the room. So that's the name of the software, in the room. Like you want to know who's in the room, the people want to be in the room. We can actually track who's in the room at an event. Like we can track all that data. So and then intheroom.live, they can set up a call and just check it out.
Perfect.
And
cool.
Yeah, we're about to, like, our next step is I want to bring in some commission-based sales reps for that company to really go out and do a lot of outbound marketing for it and outbound lead generation to kind of set us up for more sales calls. So right now it's relationship. It's like my relationships with people who are in live events, people I know. All of our clients are like Russell Brunson, Hunter Thompson, who does Raise Masters and Raise Fest. I've got Allison Maslin, who's a business coach. We do her events. We've got 15, 20 clients that are Pace Morby. We did his event at Squat Up Summit a few months ago, if anybody went there. So like these are the events that we're doing with people that I know and friends of mine.
Yeah. And so if somebody's listening to this and you want to get your chance to connect with Bill, bring him a client. And if you're someone that's running an event in the live event space, bring Bill a client and you'll be his best friend. So you'll solve his problem at the moment.
That's right.
I wanted to talk with you about how we first really got connected. Is you made a Facebook post and you said, hey, I want to go speak at, I think it was like 50 events this year. So why are you speaking at all these events and doing all these podcasts? What's the reason behind this push and all the time you're investing into it?
I would say the last 8 years of my coaching business, my business life, I was really proud of coming to an event, stepping on stage and saying, hey, who's ever heard of me before? And like 2 people raising their hand out of hundreds or thousands. And I was like, okay, cool. I can be the best speaker at this event. I can blow their mind, and they've never heard of me before. So I haven't it was just like, I don't know, it was like an ego thing or something that I liked doing, is like not being known, being able to walk through an event. Nobody knows who I am. And then I come up. It's just, I think probably growing up, my dad was very humble and quiet and like drove a crappy car. He's the millionaire next door, like built his business himself, saved a bunch of money, drove junky cars, bought clothes from Sears. I think most people listening to this never even walked into Sears before. I think he probably shops at Walmart now to get his clothes, or Costco. And just like, you would never know that he was a millionaire when I was in college, and he finally built his company. And so I think there was some of that. And what I realized recently is the reason, and we've been in the back of the room building the best company on the planet, in my opinion. But nobody knows who we are. So nobody knows who we are. So me having pride in that is an ego thing for me, but it's not serving the company at all. Any of the shareholders, any of the staff, any of the people, anybody involved in the company at all. Our members, they don't, other members don't know who we are. We're not being able to recruit the best people on the planet to be inside the mastermind. All of those things. So I said, look, the last 2 years, I wanted my marketing team to grow the company. I wanted we wanted to run ads. I wanted them to do it without me, without needing me, without me going to speak, me going to events, me being on podcasts. And we've slowly been declining in revenue, not in revenue, but in profitability the last 2 years because of that. And when I look back at all the people that have come in our mastermind, all the best clients, like all the people that I love hanging out with and spending time with and that are doing really big things, they pretty much, they didn't come from an ad. They came from me meeting them, spending time with them, like listening to podcasts. They were longtime podcast listeners. They heard me on another podcast and said, I want to figure out how to be in front of it. I want to be around that guy. Like, I like what he says. Like, he's speaking my language. It's magnetic marketing. Like, people either get repelled by it or attracted by it. And people are like, that, I mean, this dude's in a hoodie and shorts and sandals, and that's who I want to hang out with, not the guys in suits that are smoking cigars, going to the bar and getting hammered and all that stuff. Like, that's just like not really our community, So like the way we talk, what we do, very family oriented. We got kids. Like, we might talk about Jesus, and so like that's the kind of people that I got to get out there. I got to put myself out there in order to attract those people, right? And so I said, all right, well, I go back on the road. I got to go back on the road. I got to go to meetups, got to go to events, got to talk to people. We've got to bring in the right people, and I'm the head recruiter, and I got to do my job. Even though it's not my favorite thing to do, like I do really like it. Like, I'll be the last person at the meetup. Like, I mean, come on, I invited everybody in the plane to fly back and we got in my car. We went to Taco Bell for the first time in like 10 or 15 years for me, because it's the only place open.
You're like, don't tell my wife.
Well, yeah, if she listens to this, I'm in trouble too.
Don't worry, she probably won't, right?
Yeah, probably not. And then like your parents came, pick you up, like, got to say hi to them. Like, that was cool, but then I need to sleep for a day.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm a closet introvert that I know myself. So I just did a 2-day kids event last week, and got home on Thursday night. I went to bed at 8:00. I woke up at 7 a.m. So I slept for 11 hours. Like, I needed that. But I was the last person out every night. Like, everybody was talking to me. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I'd do it again in a second. I would have done it again on Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday. I just wouldn't need to sleep for a week after that. So that's why I did it. Is we just need to be best known. Best known will always be best. And
how's it been so far? Like, what's the result? How's it been so far? Like, what results have come from that?
They've been good. I would say, like, it's really hard to track this. It's really hard to track it unless I created like a different lead magnet for every single place I went to. We tracked all the data going through. I will tell you, it has built a lot of connections. Our following is growing. It's likely growing anyway, but I feel like that is the business. Like, you got to be on tour effectively. Like, that's the way you sell. That's the way it's not even selling, it's building trust. Like, when people can meet you and see you and spend time with you, they trust you. And when you trust someone, that's when you want to do business together. That's when you see who somebody really is. You see that the front of the house matches the back of the house. It's so hard to know who's authentic these days and who's fake, because social media is like all over the place. It all looks good. Like, everybody looks like they've been, all their makeup's done the second they wake up. Like, it's a fake. It's all fake. So, like, come spend time with us. Come out to my farm anytime in Spring Hill, Tennessee. You come out there when I'm out there working, you'll see who I am. You'll see my kids screaming at me. You see my wife yelling at me, and I'll be sweaty and dirty and working hard and having fun, and we'll talk business, we'll talk life, whatever. Like, I'm that's kind of, I probably am who it kind of looks like I am, but I mean, you watch the YouTube video, I'm flying a multi-million-dollar airplane. It's like, that's not attainable for people. It's like, come see all my problems, come see all my issues, come see my kids crying and yelling and screaming and, real life. That's kind of what real life is.
Such a great piece of advice that Aaron Amuchastegui gave me that truly changed my life. And Aaron owns a bunch of rentals out in Austin, Texas. Don't know if you know him yet or not. But Aaron gave me this piece of advice while we were in Costa Rica at the Action Academy retreat. And he said, when someone says, if you're ever in the area, let me know. Or if you're ever in the area, stop by. Plan your trip. Essentially, when someone says, if you're ever in Nashville and Spring Hill, right? If someone's listening to this and they resonate with what you say, they should go plan their trip to go come out to your farm. They should DM you and ask, when are you going to be at the farm? I want to come out. Because that's how you get to that next level. That's how you get those true interpersonal relationships, like where you can just text somebody, right? Like, I'm sure like there's people out there that I could just DM and they'll DM me back, right? That you have to get through the funnel, go through the assistant and stuff like that. And those relationships are built by showing up in person, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I've only had like 5 or 6 people like intentionally come out to my farm when I tell thousands of people about this. And so, And usually it's people who are already making millions of dollars. It's not usually people who are like just getting started. And so I can count on two hands the people that I've invited that have actually taken me up on it and done it. And I've had people fly from like Arizona, from Chicago, from California, like that met me at an event, and I was like, come to the farm. And they did exactly what you said, Hayden. They actually like right there it said what date, and they booked a flight and came, and we had dinner together. This was like really cool. Like, yeah, it was great. And so other people who are here locally that will meet me there, they're usually people who are running multi-million-dollar companies, not somebody who's just getting started.
And
But all are welcome,
yeah, and those are the people that you'll never forget, right? Like
Yeah.
the people that, and for me too, whenever people, I tell them about my event in Chattanooga. I had a guy drive down from Florida that day to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then drive back that night to come out to my meetup. And it's
That's
like,
awesome.
his name is Max Shaw. And it's like, dude, are you crazy? Like, you're driving back tonight. He's like, I run a gas station. I got to be back and go run my gas station that I own. I'm like, wow, like you're incredible, dude.
Yep.
So shout out to Max.
I did it. I did an event in Nashville. It was a meetup. There's probably like 50 or 60 people there. I had a guy drive from New Mexico from my email list, Gary Ochoa, and I'll never forget. Gary stayed the night, hung out with my kids at the house, and just he's been on my email list for a long time. He has been in our programs, and drove up and drove back the next day for a meetup,
Yeah,
like a couple hours. It's really cool.
I do that all the time.
Well,
But
obviously, you had somebody like you got in my airplane, had somebody drive your truck back from
yeah,
Knoxville to Chattanooga, and then figured out how to get back. I don't know how you got back
took
to
the groom
Chattanooga.
shuttle.
A
Yeah,
shuttle?
the groom shuttle took me back. So I
Nice.
left Knoxville, and then my friend Daniel, who sponsored my meetup, was also in Knoxville, and he's like, I could drive a truck back. So he dropped it off at the groom shuttle in Chattanooga, and then my parents drove to Spring Hill, which is an hour from where they live, and picked me up and drove an hour back. And then they dropped me off at the airport the next morning, and I took the shuttle back to Chattanooga. So I woke up that morning in Nashville. I was like, where am I? I
Yep.
just had no clue where I was.
And
Uh,
you coordinated all that in like an hour, probably.
it was 30 minutes. The whole like first 30 minutes you were talking, I wasn't listening to a single freaking thing because I was trying to figure out how do I get back from Nashville and get my truck to, yeah.
Well, I gave away the $1 million idea in the first 30 minutes, so I'm sorry you missed it.
Well, you're going to speak at my event, so I'll get it again.
All right.
So I want you to tell me about the mission of Teenage Tycoon. You kind of alluded to it, but I know that was something that you were really passionate about when we met the first time. I want to tell you about the mission. I want you to tell about the mission on it and why you started that.
Yeah, I mean, I run a real estate mastermind, right? Seven Figure Flipping is a real estate mastermind group. We got people that come in. We got these adults that come in. I don't know, anywhere from like, I think our youngest member is like 20 all the way up to probably like we have a member that's 82. So like 20 to 82. And most of these people, and the 82-year-old has a daughter who's in the group too. So the two of them work together in Texas. I think she's 82. I hope she doesn't listen to this and she's like 80 or something, but definitely in her 80s. And so they always like the first event they come to, there's like, this is my why. And it's always like their family, right? They're trying to leave a legacy. They're trying to, make their ceiling their kid's floor, right? They want their kid to have a better life, their family to have a better life than them. And so I was like, why do we need to wait? So these kids started showing up at our event. It started with this 12-year-old named Riley Eccles. Riley showed up at our event in like 2017, and she was the only kid in the room. And her dad's divorced. So the time that they spend together was at houses with her dad. Her dad's, a landlord. And he came to this event, was talking, they listened to podcasts together. They do the coaching together, like they're in the group together. And she's like making videos for YouTube at 12 years old. This is back, I don't know, what is it, 7 years ago? She just turned 18. I think she just turned 18. So she's at this event and they're like, there's a kid in the audience. This is weird. And then the next year there were like 3, 4, or 5 kids in the audience. So like everybody saw that and like, oh, I can bring my kids to this event. Cool. And there's no like bad language or anything like that. So they felt comfortable doing it. So the next year there was like 5 or 6 kids in the audience. And then that was 2018. And then 2019, there was like 12 kids in the audience. And I was like, what's happening here? And kids started like, could I flip a house? Like, do you think I could flip a house? Under 18, these kids under 18. And then in 2021, I asked Riley and her dad to speak at the event, at my event called Flip Hacking Live. And they spoke at the event. And there were probably like 30 kids in the audience at that event because it just kind of kept growing, right? And then the next year, they inspired a bunch of other kids to go out and flip houses, like actually do it. And so the next year, I had a 12-year-old come talk with his dad. He had bought a house, fixed it up, and turned it into a rental property, kept it as a rental property. And so they showed the negotiation, like they recorded the negotiation on the phone with the seller. He raised the money with one of his dad's
12-year-old negotiating with the
12-year-old negotiating on the phone with a seller. He goes, the guy's like, I don't think I could do, I think it was like, I don't think I could do 155,000, but I could do 160. And he looks at his dad and he goes, can I? And his dad's like, and he goes, it's too high. It's too high for us. And he's kind of like looking at his dad, looking at the phone. And then the guy goes, he's like, I could probably do like 157. And he looks at his dad and his dad goes like this. And he goes, yes, okay, yes. And he starts screaming. And his dad's like, stop screaming. Like, don't sound so excited. And it's just really cool video of like him negotiating, kind of with his dad's help. Right. And then he raised the money. He managed, the budget and working with the contractors, learning all that stuff. We had a 17-year-old, she was 16 at the time, who had done 3 houses over the next year. So she wholesaled 1, flipped 1, and I think she wholesaled 2 and flipped 1. And she's done like 7 houses now at almost 18. And so the second year in 2022, all those kids spoke on stage. And the 12-year-old with his dad, the 17-year-old spoke by herself, or she was 16 at the time, spoke by herself. And that motivated this 13-year-old kid to go flip 3 houses the next year. So he shows up in 2023 and he flipped 3 houses in the past year. He's made like $130,000. And he gave $1,000 of his own money to the charity. So all this stuff is happening, and we're like, okay, like we got to figure out how to tap into what these people want and need. So we created this event last year. It was last summer, called Kids. It was like a Kids Wealth Workshop, and we had ages 5 to 18 come. We had about 150 people, 200 people come to my office here in Spring Hill. And we broke them up we taught the same classes 4 different ways based on age. So like 5 to 8 was one age group, 9 to 11, 12 to 14, and 15 to 18. They kind of like 4 different ways to teach the kids based on their age. And we taught them financial independence and literacy. We taught a little bit about business and about real estate. We had a party at my farm, a water slide, a money booth, food, trucks, all that stuff. And gave them assignment that they go to the food truck, they got to come up with how much money they get to spend as a family. So the kids have to determine the budget for the day and the event. So the parents say, hey, you got $50 to spend on food. And we had an ice cream truck and we had a barbecue truck. And so they had homework. They had to go out and do that and learn about spending. Like if you spend all the money at the barbecue truck, you don't have any money left over for ice cream. And so, they were doing a lot of that, learning things like that. And then this year, and then in January, we launched a program called Teenage Tycoon, where it was a paid educational program for families. So we do a book. We read a book once a month. We have guest mentors come in every Thursday night. We do a book club. We have a video course, and we teach them how to use Slack. So they network in Slack. So it's something that's actually useful for them as they develop their business down the road. Really incredible. And they do 2 live events a year, one in the summer, one in the winter, during summer break and winter break. And then we did our live event this summer for that group. And we just did it last week, where we had 100 kids come out, 200 people total with their parents. And we played a game. We put them through a financial game where the kid with the highest net worth at the end wins. And just in 2 nights from now, Thursday night, I'm going to have the entire scoreboard. I'm going to go through case studies of the different kids, of who won, who didn't win, why they won, why they didn't win, and train them on the decisions that they made to buy assets, to buy liabilities, who bought the high expensive living package, who made the best decisions along the way, what job did they pick that gave them the best like financial outcome possible, who took the most debt, is debt good or bad, like all this stuff that we trained a little bit towards the end of the day, but I still want to go deeper with the kids that are in the program. So that's it. I really want, I like, why do we have to wait like 10 or 15 years? Like, hey, and why do I have to make you successful in your 30s or 40s to give your kids financial literacy along the way? Like, why can't we just go straight to the kids right now and train you both? Because there's 40 and 50-year-olds that aren't financially literate right now. So they can't teach their kids. And there's others that are, but their kids are the coach's son, the teacher's son, or daughter, and they're not as interested in learning from you as they are from somebody else. And sometimes people need to learn from somebody else to give the same advice, but they'll listen. Like my wife, I came back from a Tony Robbins event and I was like, throw out all the deodorant that has aluminum in it. Like no more aluminum in my deodorant. She's like, I've been telling you that for 3 years. You go to a Tony Robbins event, and you come home and throw out all the deodorant. Like, yeah, I've been every year I tell you that. Why don't you listen to me? And I was like, well, Tony Robbins is tall, very successful, has a lot of money, flies helicopters, and
Walks on fire.
yeah, I kind of like maybe I should listen to him. He's kind of scary. And so, a lot of times we don't listen to our spouse, but we'll listen to somebody else. So kids are the same way. Like they'll listen to me probably more than they'll listen to their parents. So if we're teaching similar things, same culture, same values, those kind of things, then or similar, then it's a good emphasis for the kids. So even the most financially literate family, their kids can learn a ton from this. So that's what we're doing. That's why I'm excited about it. It was the best event I've ever put on ever, I think. Like it was so good. The kids were engaged. They're usually bored. There were no devices, no iPads, no phones pacifying the kids. It was awesome. Like they were into it. Didn't like we had youngest kid there was like 6 or 7, all the way up to 20, 21 that were like, this is amazing.
Next event you have, I want to be there. So
you should have been there at this one. I don't know what you're waiting for.
I messaged you. I was like, hey, I want to help. But
just come, just show up.
Come. I'll just show up.
You could have gotten in.
Like Bill told me I should be here, and so but yeah,
I want to figure out how to take it on the road. Like I want to figure out how to take it on the road because the game is insane. Like it's so good that we built that I want to figure out how to do it in other cities. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I have a vision for it. I kind of see where we could possibly do it, but I don't want to like fly to every city. We're also launching a TV show here. So we have a contract that we're negotiating right now, and the TV show is going to be kids flipping houses. So that's going to hopefully come out this fall with we have a contract with a really big network that you would know. So I think that's going to be my focus for the next couple months is traveling all around the country and shooting the TV show with the kids that we have on the docket. We got 6 kids that are going to be in the show.
I can't freaking wait for that, man. That's going to be insane.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Properly insane.
I can't really talk about a lot of the details right now, but
Sure.
I'm really excited about announcing that hopefully this week because we have to raise close to $3 million to shoot the show. But we have some guaranteed money on the back end. So I can actually like as close to guarantee a return for an investor as I ever have before in my entire life.
Have you talked to AJ Osborne yet?
No.
AJ has a school that he does something similar to what you're doing with your program.
Oh,
so
cool.
You guys should definitely chat with each other. So, because my coach, Joe Moffitt, his son goes to AJ's school. And then, of course, Brandon Turner's friends with AJ and the whole network behind that, too.
Are you talking about like a brick-and-mortar school?
Yeah. He has like a brick-and-mortar school that he teaches kids. Basically, like AJ's school, and I talked with his wife about this at Bigger Pockets, but their school is like where the students come in and you get a paycheck, right? Like it's like you're going to work, but you're going to school, and they have to buy their desk, and then like they have to budget for their meals and everything. And at the end of it, basically like when you graduate the school, you start an LLC and like have a business. So
cool.
Like it's super duper cool. I can't remember what his school's called, but yeah, AJ, that's his like birth child is his school.
Cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah, I'll get you guys connected. And then something I wanted to talk about too is we're coming up on our time, but I definitely wanted to hit this. Is there was stuff I want to ask you. Maybe we'll have a follow-up episode in a year or something like that. But I want you to talk about your faith because it's something that really stood out to me in the talk that you did in Knoxville. And faith is something that's super important to me. But how impactful has your connection, to your faith been in your business? And maybe talk about a tough time that your faith really helped you through.
Well, when I started this business, I've always kind of like, I would say I really like went back to the church like in 2016, end of 2015, early 2016. So starting my business in like 2011, 2012. Being in the military, I grew up, my parents grew up Catholic, my dad specifically, kind of rebelled from the Catholic Church. He was an altar boy, confirmed, all that stuff in the Catholic Church. When I was a kid, they put us in a Unitarian Universalist church, which kind of like Unitarians kind of like learn all the different religions so that we could understand like everything. We'd study all the different religions. Got confirmed there when I was older. And then when I left there, I was like, maybe I should go back to the Catholic Church. My family is, my dad's side, I'm very close with, is very devout Catholics. And so I kind of like bounced around in the military, just like in and out of church from time to time, like when I was with my family, but never really like, I would go because I thought I was supposed to. And then our middle son, James, was born. We were pregnant with him. We found out he only had half a heart. So he, about 20 weeks into the pregnancy, we found out there's a heart defect. He's got a heart defect, and then he has a chromosome anomaly, like missing a piece of genetic material in the 13th chromosome that's causing the heart defect. We're concerned about all these other things that could happen with him: delayed, growth, not eating, have to have surgery. He's going to have at least three surgeries after he was born. Like, we knew that ahead of time. And so my cousin, he was 17. No, he was 15 at the time. 15, couldn't even drive. I was in Nashville, and he's like, "Come to church with me," and I was like, "No." Like, I'm not going to that church. It was like a mega church, play music, people with their hands up and things like that. And I was like, I've heard of those churches. I don't need to go to that church. Let's go to the Catholic church. That's all I know. And he's like, "Just come with me, come with me." And I was like, no, 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 no. And finally I said yes. And I went, and I'm sure like some people will listen to this and know exactly what I'm talking about. But I was like in there, and this pastor came up, and he started, giving a sermon. And I was like, it was different church than I've ever been to. It's like 30 minutes of singing and worship music. And then we sit down, and he starts talking. And I was like, this guy's talking directly to me. There's probably like 1,000 people in the room. Maybe, yeah, probably 1,000 at that time. And I was like, I'm the only person here. He's talking directly to me. Like, he's talking about my life, me, everything, me. Like, I'm like, I didn't even look around. I was just like, just stuck on it. Mm-hmm. And we were visiting Nashville, considering moving there. And then I went back to Pensacola, and we decided to move to Spring Hill, Tennessee, to be in the location where our son was going to be born and have surgery. And in 5 days, I packed up all of our stuff, bought a house on the internet, and moved. So that next Sunday, I was in Pensacola. We were getting everything ready, and I told my wife, I said, "Lucy, I'm going to watch this church service and prove that this was a fluke." I was like, "This is not possible." But they stream it on YouTube, so I'm going to watch it. And basically, like, the engineer and scientist in me is going to prove that this was, it was a fluke. And so that pastor's name was CZ, Curtis Zachary. And the next week, it was a different guy named Darren. It was the lead pastor of the church, and he's giving his sermon. I'm sitting there watching YouTube, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's happening again. What is going on here?" And so that's when I decided, all right, I'm going to go deeper into this. And they helped us get through the surgery with James, the birth. CZ has been a dear friend. That first pastor, I have no idea what he was talking about at that first sermon. All I know is I remember the feeling. I remember what happened. And I remember me saying, okay, maybe God exists, and maybe he does love me. And so just kind of went deeper over the last, I don't know, like, almost 10 years, 9 years now, 8-9 years, and really have not missed an in-person service or watching it on YouTube or replay wherever I am in the country since then. Really, like, it's been quite the journey. And just so you asked me like how it played a part. I think it in the beginning, it gave me a really big reset that day for the week. Like, what I realized is it gives me some grounding and a place to really kind of take a day to think about where I am and where I'm going and what I need to do and who I need to be for all the people around me. And there's been plenty of times where it's gotten me through some really hard and dark places. I know through James's surgeries and everything he went, he's had 5 open heart surgeries, 6 heart catheters. And I don't know what the future brings for him. He's doing really well right now, but he didn't eat for 3.5 years, had a G-tube surgery, ate through a tube for, 3 years, 6 months. He ate through his tube in his nose. It was a horrible, horrible experience for us and him. But he's the happiest little kid on the planet. And I think that God put him in my life for a reason, to slow me down, to have this little buddy of mine that you just have to have more patience. I have no patience, and I have to have patience with him. He really tests me and challenges me, but I think he makes me a better human being and a better guy. So been a lot of times where I've had to kind of turn back to that faith. And honestly, I probably will always call myself a baby Christian. I feel like I learn so much at church and from these pastors and leaders and people that are way more spiritual and educated than I am. And I feel like I'm going to school. I'm going to theology school every Sunday or anytime I go to my church, and I love it. Like, I drive I pass the same church in my town to go to the one in Franklin, Tennessee. Like I drive right by it. There's one right here in Spring Hill, right next to my house. But I go to Franklin because of the feeling from that first service. Like that's my church, you know. And so yeah, I also think it'll keep me here for a long time. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not overly willing to move. I think I don't even know that many people in the church, but it's been pretty big for me, and I still feel like I'm learning all the time. Like I I don't know. I'd probably never stop learning in that area, and I love to learn, so it's really cool. But I go now because I want to go, not because I have to go. And like I'll move anything that I can to be able to go. Even this week, I was like, it was a different. They changed the service time, and it caused a little bit of problem in my house, and I was running late. Like I was going to get there. It starts at 9:45 now. It's usually 9, but our whole morning got thrown off because of it. I take all 3 boys. My wife doesn't go anymore. She used to go with me, so that's something I'm praying for right now. But all 3 boys, and we get there at 9:47. On the way, I was like, maybe I should just take them to the park today. Like, I'm usually 20 minutes early, getting them checked into all their daycare, getting James checked into the special needs program, and I was like, maybe I should just turn around today. But we went, and I'm so glad I did. My oldest son didn't want to go to the kids program, so he came in with me for the first time ever, and me and him sat there. And he was like mesmerized by the service. And at the end, I said, "Did you like it?" He goes, "Yeah, I liked it a lot." I said, "What'd you like?" He said, "I liked the music." And so it was just really cool, like to have my 11-year-old come in there with me with all the other adults instead of going to the kids camp program. He wants to come to this, so and spend time with me. So yeah, I could probably talk for an hour on this, so I should probably wrap it up. There's a lot of places I think that I feel like God's presence is there, and it's real. And as a scientist and an engineer my whole life, I'm still like figuring out how to explain that to people who want the scientific answer.
Yeah, it's such a blessing, and it's something that only I think you can experience at the right time, like whenever God's calling you to it. I mean, like I was at church last Sunday in Woodstock, Georgia. Never been to this church before in my life, and it's like I go to a regular church. It's like I say regular church. It's a Church of Christ, but we have instruments, which is actually very much not regular. But anyways, my church is like they play the little cajon box, and it's like very low key. We don't have all the lights. I'm in this church, and they're like blaring the drums and the lights, and like it was not what I was used to. But and then they roll down this big screen for the preacher to come on the screen. And I was like, this is so weird. Like, this is not what I'm used to. And then, halfway through that message, there was, I don't even remember what he said, but it's kind of like what you described. It's just something that just hits you. I started crying. And I was like, there's just those moments that happen all the time where you're just like, you take a second, you slow down, and you think about how it's not just you here. Or maybe it is just you there at that moment. And so I love that. That's such a great testimony. Thank you for getting into all that. So we're going to finish up here. I want to ask you my last question, and that is, what is a connection to a person or maybe a group of people that you can think of that truly just change the trajectory of your life?
I really think that Justin Williams and Andy McFarlane, that first ever like mastermind program, the first podcast, is really cool because a lot of people might jump into the wrong program at first, while they're looking for the right person. I've heard people like, we got scammed. It wasn't what we thought. These people are. I jumped in. It was like he was speaking directly to me on the podcast. I really enjoyed it. I was like, this guy seems like a really good guy. And the return that I got on that relationship and the connection has been massive for me. It's been really, really good. And then one of Justin's mentors was a guy named Russell Brunson, and he would talk about him all the time. And I was like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't have no other time. I'm like all in on this program. And then years later, when I bought the company, I was like, I have to figure out this marketing game. I have to understand it. And, getting into his community has been really, really big for me. Now being connected to Russell, knowing him personally, spending time with him has been really, really cool. I never thought that that would happen, but, I wrote a $150,000 check to get in the room, and I made sure that I delivered as much value as possible. And then it wasn't, but maybe 6 months later that he asked me to be on stage in front of 5,000 people at Funnel Hacking Live, which was the biggest stage I've ever spoke on, which was life-changing for me. And so just constantly like just being around really good people and just paying to get in the room for those if I can, And just proximity is really power there of the people that I want to get to know, that I actually want to meet and spend time with. And then they are who they look like on the front, which is really cool. Like the front of the house matches the back of the house. And yeah, those have been two that it's just been like, I don't even know how to explain it. Yeah, so it's just opened my mindset, give me tons of opportunity and perspective, I think, in what I didn't know. And I think that's what a lot of people need today is they sometimes you just need to sit next to somebody who makes like $100 million a year and be like, I could do what this guy does better, you know, and that'll change your perspective of what's possible. So.
That's amazing. Well, Bill, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been, honestly, don't tell anyone, it's one of my favorite episodes I've recorded so far. But tell people how they can find you. You kind of mentioned your Instagram earlier, but where's the best place for people to follow along with you and to, join the mastermind and join the business if they wanted to?
Yeah. If you're a real estate investor looking to kind of systemize, automate your business, build in more process and procedures and stuff, or just do your first deal, we can help you there. It's sevenfigureflipping.com. So the number sevenfigureflipping.com. And then my software company we talked about is In the Room. So intheroom.live. And then our Teenage Tycoon program we talked about, it's teenagetycoon.com. You can kind of check out what we do there. And then all my personal social medias are just my name. So at Bill Allen REI in most places. I think it's Fly with Bill Allen or something on TikTok. TikTok was taken. Somebody stole it. But Bill Allen REI on YouTube and Instagram. And then you can find me on Facebook or wherever you hang out. We have a podcast called Seven Figure Flipping. There's like too many places. So pick your favorite platform. Come hang out
Search
with me
Bill
there.
Allen.
Yeah.
Come find it.
I'd say Instagram's the thing that I still answer myself. I don't really know how to do TikTok messages. We just post some stuff on there, but Instagram messages, I still answer myself. Facebook, sometimes it's me. Sometimes it's somebody helping.
What's the farm called too?
Oh, it's called Hidden Gem Farm, Hidden Gem Farmers Market. You can find it on Google Maps. And just the only thing is if you want to hang out with me, there's always someone there on Friday and Saturday working, except for like in the winter. But if you want to hang out with me, just make sure I'm there.
All right. Awesome, Bill. Thanks so much for coming on, man. And I'll see you the next time we get in the plane together or when you're at my real estate meetup.
Can't wait.